Hi there, I'm Justin Wissenhunt from Montana Instruments, and today I'm going to teach you how to cool down your Gen-3 Cryostation. The cooldown process is fully automated, and there are several options that allow you to optimize the cooldown for your environment and your experiment. If your system is equipped with a turbopump, you will also see options to customize how the turbopump is used. The pre-cooling target pressure is used to set a pressure threshold that should be reached before cooling begins. To get started, make sure you are on the main operate view for the sample chamber and have the platform temperature channel selected. After you've loaded your sample and put the lid on the sample chamber, set the target temperature for the platform to your desired temperature. Use a target temperature of 0 if you want the system to get to the lowest base temperature possible. The target temperature can be adjusted at any time during the cooldown process. Press the cooldown button to bring up the options for customizing your cooldown. This screen shows the current value of each setting. The system remembers the values used in the most recent cooldown. To review or change these settings, press Customize Cooldown. The cooldown process will begin by checking your system for vacuum leaks while establishing a rough vacuum level that is needed for effective cryopumping. During the process of establishing rough vacuum on the sample chamber, you can also enable the platform bakeout or dry nitrogen purge procedures to help clean out your system before beginning cryopumping. These steps are especially helpful if you've had the sample chamber open for an extended period, or if you plan to keep the system cold for a long period of time. The platform bakeout uses a thermal vacuum bakeout procedure that applies heat to the cryopumping surfaces while running the vacuum pump to help desorb and pump out contaminants such as water vapor. After enabling, you can adjust the bakeout temperature and the duration as desired. Just be careful here if you are using materials such as grease to mount your sample, as the bakeout can cause grease to run into places you don't want it. The bakeout timer starts once Stage 1, Stage 2, and the platform have all reached the target temperature. These surfaces are then held at the bakeout temperature for the duration of the bakeout. When enabled, the dry nitrogen purge process will repeatedly pump down and refill the sample chamber with dry nitrogen to help draw contaminants out of the sample chamber. You can set this process to repeat as many times as you'd like. If you don't have dry nitrogen connected to your system, then dry nitrogen purging will be skipped even if it is enabled. If your system is equipped with a turbopump, you will also see options to customize how the turbopump is used. The pre-cooling target pressure is used to set a pressure threshold that should be reached before cooling begins. This allows you to use the turbopump to thoroughly pump out the vacuum space before any cryopumping occurs. The pre-cooling time limit is used to set an upper limit on the amount of time to wait while trying to pump down to the target pressure threshold. You can also set whether you want the turbopump to run continuously during the entire cooldown. If disabled, the turbopump will be turned off and valved off after cryopumping takes over. The turbopump is also used during the platform bakeout procedure to maximize the effectiveness of the bakeout procedure. When you are ready, navigate back and press Cooldown to begin. As mentioned earlier, the first part of the cooldown will check your system for vacuum leaks. If any leaks are detected, the cooldown will be aborted. You will know all leak checks have passed after the system's status no longer says checking for leaks. The overview screen is the place to go if you want to watch the pull vacuum process in more detail. After finishing the bake out and skipping the purge because I don't have nitrogen connected, the system is now waiting for the turbopump to reach the pre-cooling target pressure before continuing. After establishing a good vacuum level and finishing the bake out and dry nitrogen purging, and hitting the pre-cooling target pressure threshold for the turbopump, the cryocooler will turn on and the system will begin to cool to the target temperature. In order to cool as quickly as possible, the system will run the cryocooler in high power mode until the target temperature is reached. After the platform target temperature is reached, the cryocooler will run in a normal power mode or low power mode, depending on the target temperature. If the platform never reaches the target temperature, such as when the target is set to 0, then the cryocooler will run in a high power mode indefinitely, providing you with maximum cooling power and the lowest possible base temperature. The temperature graphs are also a good way to monitor the progress of the cooldown. The system is now cold and approaching base temperature. You can change the platform target temperature at any time. The blue circle blinks when the system is cooling down or working to acquire the target. Once the platform has reached the target temperature, the circle around the center of the screen will stop blinking to indicate that it is locked in on the target temperature. The temperature stability of the platform is displayed in the center of the screen, along with the heater power being applied to maintain that temperature. The temperature stability will also turn green when the temperature has stabilized at the target temperature. The threshold used to determine whether the temperature has stabilized can be customized in the instrument settings. You can change the platform target temperature to move the different temperatures in the temperature range. When moving to a higher temperature, the cryocooler will run in a lower power mode to get there quickly. When moving to a lower temperature, the cryocooler will run in a high power mode to cool as quickly as possible. You can press stop or warm up at any time during the cooldown. To warm up as quickly as possible, use the warm up button to actively warm the system using the heaters on stage 1, stage 2, and the platform. The vacuum space will be left valved off at the end of the warm-up process to keep your sample chamber vacuum space as clean as possible. Pressing stop will turn off the cryocooler and allow the system to warm up naturally, leaving the vacuum space valved off. The system is now warming up. After the system is warm, and when you're ready to exchange your sample, use the vent button to vent the sample space and break vacuum. If dry nitrogen is connected to the system, dry nitrogen will be used for a few minutes to help push contaminants out of the vacuum space and to recharge the charcoal adsorbers. If you plan to do a quick sample exchange, you can also choose to vent continuously with dry nitrogen until you hit stop. This allows you to maintain a positive outflow of dry nitrogen gas while working in your sample space to further reduce contamination while the lid is off the sample chamber. Press vent to begin the process. Before venting, the vacuum pump will clear out the vacuum lines in case there are any leaks. Press stop to stop the vent process. If you won't be using the system immediately to do another cooldown, it is recommended to use the pull vacuum button to bring down your sample chamber back under vacuum for storage. This will help keep water vapor and other contaminants out of your system, helping ensure an efficient and effective cooldown the next time you use your system. The pull vacuum procedure uses the same options as your last cooldown. Set a target pressure to pump down to before turning off the vacuum pump and valving off the sample chamber. If you set a lower target pressure than the roughing pump is capable of achieving, then the pull vacuum process will run indefinitely until stopped manually. The turbo pump will be used during this process if a turbo pump is attached to your system. This can be useful for using your sample chamber as a sample storage area when not in use. I hope you've enjoyed learning about how to cool down and warm up your system using our Gen-3 Cryostation user interface. See you next time!